Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 14th meeting of the Kern County Planning Commission. Madam Clerk, will you please call roll?
Mr. Sprague?
Present.
Mr. Louis?
Present.
Mr. Babcock?
Here.
Ms. Garcia?
Here.
Ms. Poole?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Ms. Oviatt? Mr. Denny?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move on to commission member announcements or reports. Any announcements or reports? No, seeing none, let's move on to approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no other comments from other commissioners, I would make a motion to approve the minutes of December the 10th as placed in our agenda.
There's a motion by Commissioner Sprague,
Second?
second by Commissioner Poole. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, let's move on to item D, resolution honoring past chairman Ron Sprague. Check mic. Can you guys hear me? Ron, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to present you with this Kern County Planning Commission resolution, and I'd like to read it into the record. Honoring and commending Ron Sprague for his contributions as a member of the Kern County Planning Commission. Whereas in 2015, Mr. Ron Sprague served as chairman of the Kern County Planning Commission, and the Kern County Planning Commission reviews land use permits and planning projects for the third largest county in California. And Commissioner Sprague served Kern County well, fairly, and thoughtfully considered various land use application requests and displayed interest and enthusiasm in the performance of his duties. And during his service as chairman, Mr. Sprague made effective decisions and demonstrated efforts to ensure that proposed development projects were compatible with neighboring properties, which included but is not limited to recommendations to the Kern County Board of Supervisors for landmark processing to streamline oil and gas permitting while requiring substantial new environmental monitoring and mitigation of drilling impacts, and for a land use management plan for the Indian Wells Valley that restricts planting of permanent crops in the Indian Wells Valley groundwater basin, which the goal of balancing groundwater use and sustaining future groundwater yields in the basin. And Commissioner Sprague reviewed and provided thoughtful recommendations and decisions on many important land use programs, specific plans, general plan amendments, zoning administration, tentative track maps, surface mining projects, renewable energy proposals, and other land use projects of local, regional, and statewide significance. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the Planning Commission of the Kern County, State of California, does hereby honor, commend, and thank Chairman Sprague for his service to Kern County as a member of the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
I did want to make a few brief comments, Commissioner Sprague. You know, last year for our county, I think was a historic for this commission. Specifically, we had that Indian Wells Valley Land Use Management Project. We had the historic oil and gas EIR that was massive throughout the entire county, and you did an incredible job chairing this commission. You were able to zero us in, focus us in on the issues, and were able to really make sure that this commission stayed on point and was able to get the job done. I personally am happy that you are my friend. You've been a mentor on this commission, and your comments during the deliberation process has always made my job easier with your insightful comments. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Ron, we've weathered this for many years together, and I do want to commend you because you go beyond what some of us aren't able to, and what I mean by that is going to all of these committee meetings throughout the state and bringing us back valuable information that educates us. There was some water information you brought back. You've driven miles and miles and spent hours and hours going above and beyond what some of us would maybe like to do but aren't able to. And I want to thank you for that, as well as being a good friend and a mentor. You have, your thoughts and your wisdom have helped me in some of the difficult decisions that we made in 2015 and over the past years. I don't know what year you're on, but I know it's been quite a few, and I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Just briefly, to echo the comments of my fellow commissioners, as a newer member of this commission, Ron, you've really been a great mentor in sort of figuring out how this all works and the important issues and identifying those, and so I appreciate your service in that respect. In addition, your dedication and commitment to service on this commission provides a great example for the rest of us. So thanks.
I think you've been all of our mentor, and I thought I was special. No. Thank you for taking the time to give me guidance, to explain this process. You know, jumping on this board along with Melissa, it's a lot to take in and a lot to process, and you've really made that a lot easier for me. And I appreciate your friendship, your honesty, and your insight. And I feel honored to serve next to you.
Thank you, Sochi. I appreciate it. Well, it was a rigorous year, I think I could say, for all of us. You all did a great job making proper decisions that we had. We had some opposed and some in favor, and it seems like it all came together and worked itself out. Last year was the biggest year the Planning Commission's ever had, I think, on huge projects. The oil and gas application that we had in here was probably the largest, covered 2.3 million acres of ground, and the EIR was absolutely huge and complicated, very complicated reading. But we got through it, and we got through it together, and I'd like to say that I've enjoyed my past year and years before that, especially with Commissioner Babcock. I think you're going on 20 years now, aren't you?
22.
22 years he's been on the Planning Commission. I've spent 5 years on City Planning Commission, and this is my 11th year on the Kern County Planning Commission. I enjoy what I do. I get a lot out of it. I enjoy meeting the people that we deal with on a regular basis. And I really enjoy working with these commissioners. Chad has come a long, long way since he came on the Planning Commissioner. Supervisor Gleason called me and said, I've got a lot of applications to look at, but there's one that stands out that I really think would make a good planning commissioner, and I need your input. So he asked me about Chad, and I said, you know, I think it would just be an excellent selection, and you've definitely proved that out and made me very proud with the things that you've accomplished coming on. Sochi, you've been great. You picked it up. I didn't have to do a lot of work explaining how the system works up here, but you grabbed onto it, and you did a great job through last year, and hopefully coming years, you've just been superior. Melissa, you come on and you've done a great job, and you're very smart, and you've got a lot of wisdom, and you're definitely water-oriented with your work, and I've appreciated discussing issues with you and having you on the commission. All of you have just been dear to my heart, and I've really appreciated working with you, and I appreciate this accommodation, and thank you again for recommending Commissioner Babcock. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item E, cases withdrawn or requests for continuance. There's none. Let's move on to item F, consent items. And Mr. Denny or Mr. Murphy, would you read through the consent agenda, please?
I will. Thank you, Chairman. These items are scheduled before your Planning Commission, which are being recommended for approval by staff, and the applicant has been informed of any special conditions and has no objection. The hearing on these items may be expedited if no member of the commission or audience wishes to comment or ask any questions regarding the case. We have 4 items this evening that are on the consent calendar. The first is item number 2, vesting tentative track map number 7297, zone variance number 73, map 101. The applicant is Landerin LLC by Del Marder and Associates. This project is located on the west side of Weegis Avenue, approximately a quarter mile north of Palm Avenue in the western Rosedale area. The 3 actions before your commission tonight are A, vesting tentative tract map 7297, proposing to divide a 15-acre site into 12 lots ranging in size from 1 acre to 1.3 acres for single-family residential use, a 5,968 square foot subplot and a 28,722 square foot subplot, a development variation to the land division ordinance to allow the deletion of sidewalks in a local. The second item before your commission is a zone variance to allow a 5,968 square foot lot and a 28,722 square foot lot where a 1 acre is required in an E1 RS PE district. And the final action is a request for waiver of signatures of mineral rights owners in accordance with section 18.15.03OK of the Kern County Land Division Ordinance. The staff recommendation is to approve vesting tentative tract map number 7297, subject to conditions, approve the zone variant, subject to conditions, approve the request for a waiver of signatures of mineral rights owners, disapproving petition 2750, and adopt suggested findings as set forth in the draft resolution. The second case this evening that is on the consent calendar is case number 3. This is conditional use permit number 42, map 15624. The applicant is Renee Torres by Robert and Rachel Lopez. It is located at 609 Shattuck Avenue in Taft. The request is a conditional use permit to allow a mobile home not certified under the National Manufactured Housing Construction and Safety Act of 1974 and does not meet age requirements in an R1 district. The staff recommendation is to approve in accordance with the recommended conditions and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the draft resolution. The third item is case number 4, zone change case number 31, map 10230, precise development plan number 21, map 10230. The applicant is Anthony Olivieri. This project is located at 1401 Callaway Drive in Bakersfield. The 2 actions before are first, a change in zone classification from E10 RS to C1 PD, or a more restrictive district, and a precise development plan to allow the construction of an office building in a C1 PD district. The staff recommendation is to advise your commission to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve the C1 PD zone change as requested, approve the precise development plan subject to the recommended conditions, and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the draft resolution. Finally, case number 5 is conditional use permit number 53, map number 99. This applicant is Fresno MSA LP DBA Verizon Wireless by Complete Verizon Wireless Consulting. The project is located on the north side of Highway 58, approximately 1.5 miles east of Brant Road in west of Bakersfield. The request is a conditional use permit that would allow a 150-foot tall monopole wireless communication facility and associated equipment shelter in an A district. The staff recommendation is to approve in accordance with the recommended conditions and adopt the recommended findings as set forth in the draft resolution. That completes the reading of the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there anyone in the public who would like to have one of the consent agenda items removed for a formal hearing? Anyone in the public would like to do that? Seeing none, anyone at the dais would like anything removed for a hearing? No? Any discussion?
If there's no commissioner comments, I would make a motion to approve items 2, 3, 4, and 5 as read into the record, and have Mr. Murphy read the notice of right of appeal if it applies to any of these projects.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Babcock, there's a motion by Commissioner Sprague, second by Commissioner Babcock. Roll call, please. Or vote.
All ayes.
And it does look like items 2, 3, 4, and 5 are subject to appeal. And so, Mr. Murphy?
I will. You're close. Item 4 actually is a recommendation, so that will go to the Board of Supervisors. But items 2, 3, and 5 are subject to appeal. For projects where the Planning Commission action is final, actions are subject to appeal to the Board of Supervisors by any interested person, and no development proposed by any application may be authorized until the final date of appeal. The appeal may be filed with the Kern County Planning and Community Development Department, which is located at 2700 M Street in Bakersfield, with a filing fee of $540 on forms available at the Planning and Community Development Department. The filing must be made within 14 days of and including the date of this hearing. That applies to items 3 and 5. For item number 2, which is a tract map, for tract maps, an appeal must be filed within 10 days from the date of decision of the Planning Commission. Any such appeal must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $540. That completes the reading of the notice right to appeal.
Mr. Murphy, just a brief comment on item number 4. Although we're making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, us approving a precise development plan, that's not subject to appeal? I'm just making sure for notice to the public.
Mr. Chairman, it is not. When you have an action that is normally within your purview, but is combined with an action that must go to the Board of Supervisors for final decision, those actions together are decided and considered by the board as a final action, and you receive a recommendation at the Planning Commission stage.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on this agenda and over which the commission has jurisdiction. Would anyone like to address the commission? Seeing none, let's move on to public hearings. Case number 1. Mr. Denny?
Commissioner Louie, the project we have before us tonight is a conditional use permit for an athletic sports facility, which your commission is familiar with, in that there was also an appeal considered by your commission on this site earlier as a result of a violation hearing, which is detailed in the staff report. But essentially what we're dealing with is a project where a use was established without the necessary land use approval. A conditional use permit has been filed in accordance with the provisions of the zoning ordinance, and in essence, we have a piece of property, or actually two lots, that are developed with a residence, a very large 3,000 square foot structure, and some athletic field facilities that did not get the necessary land use approval. As I've indicated, the applicant has filed for a conditional use permit. This case went to a violation hearing in June of 2015. Based upon the comments received, the hearing officer was able to make the necessary findings to allow for the continued processing. A complete copy of the staff report from that violation hearing was included in your package for your reference. However, based upon the decision that occurred at that violation hearing, an appeal was filed and was subsequently heard, I believe, in July of 2015 by your commission. And again, that information is detailed on pages 10 and 11 of the staff report, but a complete copy of the appeal staff report has been included in this staff report. For the record, the facility has been changed since the original condition at the violation hearing and at the appeal hearing. The project has been scaled back to no more than 10 individuals a day. The facility would operate as delineated on page 2, generally Monday through Friday to a large degree between 7:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. or dusk, whichever would occur first. It would also operate on Saturdays between 7:30 a.m. and noon. Again, no more than 10 individuals total on the site over the course of the day. So that's a cumulative number. That number does not include the property owner or the property owner's relatives, which have the right to be on that property since they are not involved with that athletic facility being proposed. Again, the information on the operational activities is discussed on page 2 of the staff report. As such, the parking on this facility with the change has been changed somewhat, in that since there will no longer be up to 10 people or more on the site at the time. You're looking at groups of individuals between 1 and 3. So the project site itself is requiring less parking under the revised project scope. But again, this is something that has been evolving over the course of time. I will note that is identified in the staff report After the appeal hearing, this project was then deemed complete, I believe, in September. It was to be considered in, I believe, in November and December by your commission, but those considerations were delayed. There was addendums prepared at that point in time for staff reports indicating that the applicant was continuing to work with the surrounding property owners to try and reach a consensus to clarify the scope of the operation and to work with the surrounding neighbors to address their concerns. On page 11 of the staff report, it's indicated that there were 6 comments received. That was actually changed with an addendum that was handed out to your commission at the beginning. There were a total of 7 comments received. In general, the agencies involved reminded the planning department of the need to perform certain functions or permits, obtaining the necessary health department approvals, collecting the necessary school fees, and this would be for the conversion of the structure from a garage to a commercial building. The Division of Oil and Gas commented, as did floodplain management, and all the recommendations of those agencies have been included as conditions of approval should your commission decide to approve the project tonight. There was also a letter received from Mark Smith with Clifford and Brown, attorneys at law, that reiterated the work that had gone on after the appeal hearing. Mr. Smith indicated that the Architectural Control Committee of the Rancho Rio Luna development had reviewed the revised operational statement that was received with the conditional use permit, and they believe that it sufficiently addresses and resolves all the previous concerns that were raised in opposition to the application. That committee supported the conditional use permit as a settlement agreement had been entered into with the applicants to allow for its operation of the exercise facility that was being processed by the planning department. Page 12 of the staff report discusses the environmental review that occurred. As a reminder, when this was originally considered by the hearing officer, it was capped at 8 individuals, and this was done to compare it to a ministerial project. And as you're aware, ministerial projects are not subject to CEQA. In the consideration of the appeal, your commission made that same decision in denying the appeal and upholding the decision of the hearing officer. They agreed with the same stipulations and adopted them. And in that instance, the applicant has continued to operate under those stipulations. With the revisions that have come back, they have increased the number from 8 to 10. And staff on pages 12 and 13 go on to remind your commission that we also do projects that involve limited numbers of individuals, and we still believe that the project qualifies for an exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act based on its similarity with other types of permits that the department processes. So we're drawing close comparisons with other ministerial permits or permits that require notices of hearings for other types of projects that the planning department is responsible for processing, and we believe those same exemptions would be applicable to this case. Page 13 of the staff report reminds your commission of the 5 findings that are necessary to approve a conditional use permit. And on the bottom of pages 13 and the top of page 14, staff item by item addresses how we believe each of those 5 findings can be made. And again, based on that information, we believe that the project can meet the technical requirements for approval of a conditional use permit. And as such, staff is recommending that your commission approve in accordance with the recommended conditions and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the attached draft resolution. I would just like to point out to your commission that the conditions that are being recommended by staff bear a strong resemblance to the original stipulations that your commission also adopted, but it does go on to clarify that since this is a commercial project in a Type A improvement area, the use of DG is no longer appropriate. They will have to do some surfacing, but instead of providing 8 to 10 parking spaces, they'll now only need to provide 4 as recommended by staff, but you are seeing that the same screening fences will be required. The sound system and lightings have continued to be addressed. Surfacing is really the primary change along with the decrease in parking. We are not requiring parking for the applicant as operator as they own the property, and there is a house on the site, and the house has its own parking as it exists under the county ordinance. So again, it bears a strong resemblance to what you've seen in the past, and staff believes, based on the information in the record, that these recommended conditions should be satisfactory in demonstrating that it won't be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of the property or residents in the vicinity. This completes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Denny. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. And I'd first like to ask the public, is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition of this project? Anyone here who would like to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, is the applicant here? Would the applicant like to come forward and make a presentation? Thank you. Can you please state your name for the record?
Absolutely. Good evening. Kristen Hagan. I'm an attorney with Brumfield and Hagan and representing the applicants David and Melody Carr. Just real briefly, I'd like to address your commission. I want to first thank the commission and staff for their time in processing the CUP application and the effort and energy I know staff in particular put into working through the issues with us. I appreciate that immensely, as does my client. Since we were before you last, we have spent a great deal of time and effort working with the neighbors, working with the developer of the track to try and meet their concerns, listen to their concerns, understand their concerns, and come up with workable solutions. And my clients have been committed from day one to being quote-unquote good neighbors, and I think the compromise that we've reached and the revised application that's before you this evening demonstrates their commitment in that regard. You may recall that when we were before you last, relative to the appeal that we filed to the director's determination after the violation hearing, that the decision was made to limit the operations during the pendency of the CUP application. The determination was made, as Mr. Denny mentioned, to limit operations to 8 people per day, with the analogy being drawn to ministerial permits that are issued to, I believe, in-home daycare centers. Based on that finding, your commission made the determination that such limited operations would not pose a significant health, safety, or welfare risk to the community or the neighbors. What you have before you here this evening, as mentioned by Mr. Denny, is a scaled-down operational plan that provides for a maximum of 10 people on site per day. In addition to a number of other limitations that we have proposed and agreed to adhere to in order to make sure that this proposed operation is compatible with the neighborhood, is respectful of the neighborhood, and allows for the joint use between residential and what is being set forth before you tonight. Again, I do want to mention, and just in an effort to be forthright, as I mentioned, the operational statement that we have submitted and based the CUP application on does suggest a limit of 10 people per day. I do not believe that the conditions that are set forth in the draft resolution actually specifically provide for that limitation. We are obviously ready and willing to adhere to that condition, but I wanted to at least be forthright and transparent in bringing that to your attention this evening. Since we were here last, as Mr. Denny mentioned, a great deal of work has gone into bringing us full circle and bringing this back to your commission this evening. We've submitted a number of initial studies that have helped support the conclusion that this project is exempt under CEQA. And furthermore, the CARs have agreed to and otherwise self-imposed a number of operational limits, again, in an effort to meet the concerns of the opposition. That includes scheduling, consecutive as opposed to concurrent sessions. That is, there would only be sessions that served 3 students or 3 athletes at a time, so that 10-person maximum would be spread out during the course of a day. Also, as mentioned, there will be no operations out there after dark, again, to respect the aesthetics of the neighborhood, to respect the nature of the neighborhood surroundings. A majority of the Car Elite clientele is being served from another facility, and that is the plan moving into the future. This facility really is to serve a very limited group of athletes, and really is going to ultimately serve the dream that David has had from day one, which I will let him speak to in just a moment. We've met the concerns of those previously in opposition, as evidenced by the fact that there are no letters of opposition or people in attendance this evening with concerns. We've worked hard to get to where we are today. And again, my clients are absolutely agreeable to all the conditions that have been proposed and that are being put forth before you per the staff report. So with that, again, I want to thank you for your time. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I'm going to let David say a few words, and otherwise would just like to reserve the right to speak to any issues that may come up, should any come up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagan. Before the next speaker comes up in favor, I wanted to check one more time. Is there anyone in the public who is in opposition and would like to speak? Seeing none. The next speaker in favor.
Thanks, Kristen. Hearing Mr. Sprague talk about the 2.3 million acres that you've decided on, I feel a little insignificant talking about my tract, but...
Could you state your name, please?
Oh, sorry. My name is David Carr.
Thank you.
But I know it's not insignificant to my family, or in particular the people that I really want to talk about today who've been really instrumental in just allowing this, as Kristen said, this dream to kind of happen. It's been my neighbors. They've been great all along from the beginning. I've never intended to go out and build something that would be in any way detracting from the neighborhood or make their home unpleasant or deteriorate from the neighborhood. That was always something that I felt that it would enlighten and make just a special place. So when Kristen talks about the dream that I had and what I wanted to do here, it really is on a limited basis what kind of entailed and how it grew, and how Scott has had to speak about how the facility has been pared down from where it started. It kind of we had a snowball effect happen, basically. And when we built the facility, it's a great place. It really is a neat place for kids and athletes and just really anyone to come out and train. And it turned into a little bit of a cluster. It was overwhelming, to say the least. And unfortunately, I'm pretty bad at saying no, so it blew up to a number that really was not comfortable for not only myself, because I don't have my permanent residence there right now. So Jack, my neighbor, and Marty and Sue, and they had to deal with all the day-to-day stuff, and a lot of people coming through there. So we've since made arrangements to move our main facility, and we now have a main facility at another location. We hope to have a couple more in the next coming years. But this property here is going to be my home. Bakersfield has been my home. I was away for a little while, but we're back here and we want to build our home here. And this is just kind of an extension of that. So anyone that I invite out here, and we talk about the number of 10, it's less than that on a day-to-day basis. It's going to be a very small amount. That's just a number to where my neighbors and everyone out there has a peace of mind that this won't turn into something that's overwhelming for them. So with that, again, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's put any time and effort into this. It really has been something that kind of popped into my head, went down on a napkin, and we built, and it was a great place. But sometimes you don't think about all the people that have to deal with the legalities and everything that goes into that and how it affects other people. So that was my biggest deal, and that's why we've worked so hard. And Kristen has really been unbelievable in kind of just bringing everyone together and making this thing work so far. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
All right.
Are there any other speakers? Seeing none, I'll return back to Mr. Denny. Mr. Denny, did you want to respond to Mrs. Hagan's comment?
Yes,
Comments?
with regard to conditions and the number of individuals on site, I would direct your commission to look at recommended conditions 2 and recommended condition 5B. Condition 2 states this permit authorizes an athletic and fitness training facility. This facility shall be limited to 10 individuals, including paying clients and employees per day that are directly associated with the proposed athletic and fitness training facility. Any future expansion or change in the use authorized will require prior review by the Director of the Kern County Planning and Community Development Department to determine if a modification of the conditional use permit or further environmental review is warranted. So again, we do have a condition that identifies 10 individuals in the form of the paying clients and employees. Obviously, Mr. Carr is the property owner. He's allowed there. Condition 5B goes further into the operational statement and states, at no time shall there be more than 3 customers and 1 employee on site. And this is the employee, I think, as Mr. Carr has confirmed in his operational statement, would be the trainer. So I believe, unless your commission would suggest some other revisions, we've attempted to address the number of individuals on site beyond the property owner.
Thank you, Mr. Denny. Returning to the dais, are there any commissioners who have any questions for staff? Or, and I'm assuming that Mrs. Hagan would take questions from the commission as well. She's nodding her head yes. Are there any questions for Mrs. Hagan?
Yeah.
Mr. Sprague, Commissioner Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was a difficult application. It came to us before, especially with the audience that showed up on it. And I'm extremely happy, Mr. Carr, that you and Christian worked together with staff and the neighbors and put good conversation together with all the concerned people out there. It makes me happy that we're here tonight. I support this project. I think, Mr. Carr, you're an asset to the community, and you are fulfilling the dreams of a lot of kids in town and a lot of parents in town that want to see their children excel. You're a shining example of a Bakersfield resident that really cares and wants to help the community and the county. So I appreciate what you've done. I commend you on that. And Ms. Hagan, you've done a miraculous job of putting this all together and getting your hands around it and holding it together and bringing us back tonight. You are truly one of the better attorneys that has come before this commission and spoke diligently for your client and very positively to make this become a reality. And I'm extremely happy with what you've come forward with. And with that, I would listen to other commissioners, but with that, I would be prepared to make a motion.
Are there, before you do that, Commissioner Sprague, are there any other commissioner questions for staff or for the applicant? I had one quick question. Mrs. Hagan, are you okay with the condition that Mr. Denny read into the record, the condition 2, and then 5B?
Yes, absolutely. My apologies. I obviously overlooked the initial conditions, so
Okay,
absolutely.
so you're fine with those?
Yes,
Okay.
no, absolutely. I just wanted to be upfront and clear that we were in agreement with that particular condition, so.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at this point and return back to the dais for commissioner comments and deliberation.
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman, again, Mr. Carr and Kirsten, it's nice to see that you went out to the surrounding property owners and are going to be good tenants of your property and your project. We don't see that all the time, but as you can see, it does work. It's just a matter of communication. And when you have good communication, generally you can bring a project together. So I thank you for that, as well as staff and your work on this to bring it together. And I'm in full support of the project.
All right, and it looks like there's no more comments. Mr. Sprague, were you going to make a motion?
Yes. I have the floor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I would make a recommendation to approve in accordance with the recommended conditions and adopt the suggested findings and set forth in the attached draft resolution as read into the record by staff, and look for a second.
Second.
There is a motion by Commissioner Sprague and a second by Commissioner Poole. I think Commissioner Poole beat Commissioner Garcia. Let's go ahead and cast our votes.
All ayes.
Okay, that looks like that's approved. Let's move on.
Mr. Chairman,
There's a notice of appeal.
there is for this particular project, yes,
Thank
sir. Projects where the planning commission action is final. Those actions are subject to appeal to the Board of Supervisors by any interested person, and no development proposed by the application may be authorized until the final date of appeal. Again, the appeal may be filed with the Kern County Planning and Community Development Department, which is located at 2700 M Street in Bakersfield, with a filing fee of $540 on forms available at the department. This filing fee must be made within 14 days of and including the date of today's hearing.
Thank you. Our next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for January 28th, 2016. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
There's a motion and a second. Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.